Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds about nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And we are going to discuss the 5 ways not to play a character in Dungeons and Dragons.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So we're going to be talking about the 5 types of characters you don't want to play based off a blog article that you read. I'll put a link to the description, or link in the description to that blog article.
All right, so the way this article is written, and you guys can go check it out after the video. You can pause this and go check it out and come back. Let us know what you think. But gives the character type, the reasons why you don't want to play it. But if you're going to play it, here's how to do it right.
So who's the original author?
So the author is Neil Litherland, and it was on Improved Initiative.
Awesome, and we'll put the link in the description below.
So the first character type that he's suggesting you not to play is called the Bigot. This is the racist, the person who has something against a group of people for whatever reasons, and it's hard to do properly, and you never know what other characters are coming to the table unless you're doing a session 0. And to have something like this, you have to have a strong reason to want to play this type of character, and it doesn't really provide a whole lot to work with.
It can be done, but the key is that the key to make it successful is to have a character arc in mind, and that's one where your character is going to grow and at some point become more accepting of others, or more accepting of these people that he has a problem with. The perfect example is Lord of the Rings. Gimli and Legolas, they go through this whole thing, throughout that trilogy.
Yes, but those are characters, and we see the growth. We see them go from I'm not going to trust a dwarf, I'm not going to trust an elf, to their best friends, and that's awesome, and that's a set scripted thing that happens in a novel, in a movie, harder to pull off at a gaming session unless you seriously go through the work and you want to recreate that in your game. You've got a fellow player, you've got the GM on board, and you have things that are set up in advance to make this happen.
Well, in your own game, Arbalason is played by Nate,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm playing Uthengar. One's an elf and one's a dwarf, and they're like frenemies. They get along, they get along, and the elf begrudgingly gets along with the dwarf, and my dwarf goes out of his way to tweak the elf whenever he can, just because whenever he encounters someone stereotyping him as a dwarf, it encourages him to act more dwarfy.
But you don't have things against all elves. You don't have anything specific against him. You do it because Uthengar finds it amusing.
Yes.
To be like,
oh. Yeah, but his character is kind of the bigot.
Yeah, okay.
But he's also a merchant, and he also does things in a way that things need to get done, and it has to be facilitated. So being in conflict with someone you're working with is a problem. So, he reins himself into maybe backhanded compliments or snide comments from time to time, but nothing that's a detriment to party cohesion.
Right. So I think that you guys have pulled off, the relationship well without going over the top. There haven't been, sessions where you guys have gotten into any kind of, heated arguments. No one's ever, uttered the thing of, never trust an elf or, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's not there. And I and the DM would want to step in and be like, okay, guys, let's calm this down if it got to that kind of, heated bit. Because it's a distraction to the rest of the table when it happens.
Yeah, if it adds drama and tension to the game in a good way, it's okay. If it detracts, not so much.
Right. So the next character archetype that is there is the joke, the one who's not really there for the ongoing story. They're there to just to make the pun, just to cause a scene, just to get a reaction. And this one has the biggest potential to just stonewall a game or stop things in its tracks because of what you've just done. You don't care about the ongoing story. It's just whatever crazy antic you want to do now.
Yeah, so I kind of think back to like our early days, and John Ria Coman, was like exactly one of those concepts.
We had Jean-Luc Uman Fiter, but like I don't think of him as the joke. Like out of game, like he was created because it's generic human fighter.
Yeah.
And it's more of an out of game joke. But like once you got the third edition, it was harder to create Jean-Luc Uman Fiter because there were too many choices. It's like, oh no, what do I do? How do I do this?
How do I make him generic?
And fifth edition makes it even harder because you've got, backgrounds and
Curse you, Friday.
No, it's good. Like,
it's good. Never mind.
It's just like, the diverse choices makes it that much harder to just make it. I'm a plain boring human fighter.
Yeah, I think going back to this concept is like one of the reasons I hate chaotic neutral, because I feel like that's how it's often played as well, and it's just a monkey wrench in the machine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and I've met players who are like, yeah, we don't even bother with alignment because you wind up getting people who go in that direction. It's like, well, if you just don't have that, then you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it just comes out. It just comes out and play. But yeah, the joke is, to keep for that player that keeps it running, no matter what's going on in the game, it is a problem because they're making the game about them and their character instead of the cooperative experience. It should be amongst the table. Like everybody should get a chance to shine. But when you're constantly trying, to hog the spotlight and steal it from everybody else, and you don't want to share, and all because you're trying to amuse yourself because you think you're funny and you have this great joke, and everyone's been done with it for so long now, and they just want to play the game. This is definitely a problem.
So if you want to, do this kind of character, this might be okay for a one shot if you get the rest of the tables, thumbs up or an agreement.
Or the John Reed version, like that's the okay version where it's like it's funny outside the game, or or if like your character concept is a spoof off of Monty Python or something, but most of the and most of the stuff you do is out of game funny. That's fine. I made a character that was a Warforged druid, and like I kind of went down this road a little bit, but in the sense that because I was injecting sci-fi elements into a fantasy, and I kind of played him a little bit like a transformer. I named them Shiny after Firefly, and I would make Firefly references, throughout, but nothing that like would break the game or disrupt it. It was just things that I would try and sneak into his dialogue.
But like those kind of things, like that's gonna get the player nods, like you tweak your nose at something. It's like, okay, that's cool. I saw how you snuck that in there, but it's not going to detract from the game, and it's not going to stop things in motion.
Right. That's why I put it under the how to.
Yeah,
not the how not to.
So our third thing not to do is the mute. There's loads of people who think oh well.
Disclaimer, if you are deaf and actually mute, we're not talking about you.
Yeah. This is for someone who has the ability to communicate and you're choosing not to because you think that it's a great concept. Again, this is something that might be better for a one-shot, but for an ongoing campaign, you are constantly having to rely on someone else to verbalize for you and or figure out some other way of like, okay, how are you communicating your ideas? And then also when you actually talk, like everyone has to ignore you because your character can't do that. So anytime you verbalize, it's not really you.
Right, it's always the player, never the character. Now, I get the appeal to this because it sounds really cool and it sounds like a great backstory and it might be fun, and it works really well in novels when you're reading something because you can read the internal monologue and dialogue, you can read what they're thinking, you get the interactions of the other characters around it. It's completely different in a role-playing game. This one doesn't work as well. The only way this works is if you're going to be like a great old one, warlock, and you can telepathically communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostwise, halfling can do it as well. There's a couple other instances, but in my opinion, they're the only ways that it really works.
And I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to say, like, even things like Groot and Hodor, where it's like, oh, well, I can talk, but I can only say this. Like that goes along with this concept as well, that you're really unable to communicate. Now, yes, Vin Diesel for both movies was given the script with what Groot was actually saying so that he could properly inflect the I am Groot. Which I find in amazing,
And had to do retakes.
and yeah, absolutely. There were take after take for some of them, because it's like, yeah, I want you to inflect this way or inflect that way.
I'm not feeling your anger, man, and your I am Groot.
So yeah, lot of challenge there, and like I actually think the one phrase thing could even be worse, because everyone's going to get tired of hearing that. Over the course of a movie or a TV show, not as bad, but week after week or month after month of gaming, someone's going to want to hit you.
Yeah, again, it comes down to, is this adding to or detracting from the table?
So our last one, or no, sorry, our next one is the hedonist. And the prime example that they use is
This character often leads with, "Hey, baby."
so it's like, yeah, I'm going to try and seduce the queen in the throne room right in front of the king. I'm sorry, this is not going to work. I don't care how good your charisma is. I don't care how good your seduction roll is. Unless you're actively using magic to control their mind, she's not going to just say, yeah, baby, let's do it right here. Maybe if you can do it often, in a closed room where no one else can witness, maybe you got a shot. But no. And, again, it boils down to the, how much is this going to distract the table? How much is this going to off-kilter the plot lines of what's going on? Like, you want to be a part of the group, not, I want to be, seductive.
This shouldn't be the core of your character. This should be a downtime activity that can happen off screen, pretty much, like where it's not totally derailing. It's great. You can use the carousing table all the time. It'll be great, but it doesn't have to take away from the rest of the table time for people that are actually trying to play and enjoy the game.
And the other caveat to this is you have to be aware of what the DM and the other players at the table are okay with and not okay with. And if the DM is not interested in going into any of that kind of stuff because they're just not comfortable with it, then you might actually be causing tension and lack of enjoyment to the GM, who's taken his time to provide this story for everybody else. So not only are you stealing the thunder from, or stealing the spotlight from all the other players, but you possibly are alienating the GM, who's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't want to deal with that character. All right, now we're on to our last one, and this is summed up as the misanthrope.
This guy.
The loner, the person who doesn't care about the other people. Everybody loves Batman. Everybody,
I'm so dark.
Everybody loves Wolverine, and they are great as characters to watch in a movie, as characters to read about in comic books and novels. But in a group activity, it's it's so challenging to deal with, because it's like, okay, you can have that loner. Aragorn in the very beginning of Lord of the Rings, he's off and he's alone, and it's like, oh, you got to be wary about those ranger types. And Batman is off on his own, and Wolverine is off on his own, but Wolverine joins the X-Men. Batman joins the Justice League. Batman travels with Robin and several different Robins. He's got the ability at some point in time to be a part of a group. Aragorn clearly leads the Fellowship of the Ring. They all have the ability. So your prime examples of these characters have the ability to work well in groups.
The problem is the people playing them only play certain aspects, and they're usually the disruptive aspects into the party. Oh, my character would never do that. I wouldn't go there. I'm going to scout alone. I'm going to do this thing alone. Like, anytime you say alone and you're talking about D&D, probably isn't going to work very good, because it's a group activity.
Right.
Make a character that wants to be in a group.
So I had a character who kind of sort of fit into this. You know, he was an archetype. You know, he had his own troubles from his past, but I wasn't going to say, well, yeah, I don't work in a group, because that's disruptive. It's destructive to what D&D is typically about. You want to play this kind of character, find a GM who's gonna let you play a solo game. That's what you need. That's what you want to work with, and go see how challenging that is, because believe me, it is. And that's that. If you can't find that, pick a different character type. Pick a different theme for your character.
Or have your character not be one dimensional and have some other aspects to him. Have him care about other people. Have him have a reason to find reasons to get along with this group. Maybe it's okay, like, if that's your backstory and that's how he starts out. But because that's Wolverine, that's Batman. That's all those characters that you describe to a T until they find a reason to work with a group, and then they do. For the most part. And you're gonna have to be like, if you're gonna do things that you need to do alone, well, maybe they're your time activities, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're sitting at the table and everyone's together and the GM's behind the screen and you're running the game, be a part of the group. Because how I would do this in my game is, once they start doing things that are not a part of the group, I would let them, and I would never go to them during the session.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know why? It's a group game. I want to play with the majority of the players. And if you're intentionally making decisions that are going to take away from everyone's table time, so we can spotlight your character because you're so dark, then no, screw that. I'm not going to do it. Like, Scott Garrity came to our table and is like, hey, I got this thing I need to do as my character, right? Ted, can I play a veteran NPC out of the Monster Manual for this session? Because I'm not going to take away from the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a very thoughtful and respectful thing that he did. And his understanding of this game is for everybody here, not just his character who has his important quest to do. He did it in a manner, in a way that let everyone play the game. So kudos to him for that. And if you can come up with creative solutions to playing that character, that's fine, as long as they incorporate everybody in the game.
So you have the ability to tie your character to the ongoing plot, to another character at the table, and if you want to role play that you're grumpy and that you're not as overly helpful as you could be, but still take part in the combat, still take part in the role playing, great. You're a part of the game. You're a part of the game. You're a part of the group, and you're actively partaking in the story. That's great. You're there and you're role playing your character. Thumbs up. You can still be that style, still be a part of that group, and still be true to your character without being a distraction, without being a problem at the table.
Absolutely. And there's going to be some times when, like, the spotlight is going to focus on one character, but that's okay, and there's ways of doing that.
So what do you guys think? Is there a character that we didn't mention that you can't stand being in your game? Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you think. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check the description and find a link to the original improved initiative article.
So until next time, stay nerdy.